Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Shawn. And today we are continuing to count down our top 100 favorite board games of all time. And this time we are going from 70 to 61, counting down the 60s.
And you started things off last time, so it's over to me this time, and I'm going to get right to it. My number 70 is Downforce, and Downforce is a racing and betting game. So in Downforce, you always have at least one car, and you do want that car to win because you're going to get more points if it does. But throughout the game, you are going to be placing bets on who you think is going to win. So it leads to these really interesting interactions because you can bet on anybody's car. So you may be forming these uneasy alliances, wanting other people to win because you bet on them early. But you can mess with everybody's cars because when you play a card, you have to move all of the cars on that card in order. But you don't have to move them optimally. You can always, you have to move them forward, but you can move them in such a way that, oh shucks, they got stuck and they can't move forward anymore.
I wish they could keep moving, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and so because of the interaction and the chaos and the uneasy alliances, it makes it my number 70.
My number 70 is Res Arcana. And Res Arcana is this game where you start with a mage and then 8 cards. And that's it. That's what you have for the rest of the game. It is just all about optimizing those 8 cards. How do I make those 8 cards work together? But the genius of this game is basically no matter what 8 cards you get, they can work together. And they're so specific. Every card has a different power. It's magic how Tom Lemon has managed to do this. It's the same designer as Race for the Galaxy, another just incredibly well put together game. But this one is even higher up for me because it's a game about magic that feels a little bit like magic. And with those cards, you're getting different resources. You're buying these other cards that give you points. And you are each turn you get a little spell kind of thing that you get to cast that allows you to do a little bit extra. And so all the time it's you're just at the edge of being able to do what you want to do, but you can find those paths to do what you want to, and then it's a race. It's a race to points. When someone breaks through that point barrier, they win the game. So it's really fast, it's really tight, and that just having 8 cards and how well that fits, it gives you all the joy, I think, of kind of a deck builder game, but without any of the actual building, and it's just a deck figuring out game. It's really cool, really unique, and it is my number 70.
My number 69 is Root, and Root is a very asymmetric combat game, and this took a while for me to get won over to because I'm not usually a fan of combat games, but what Root does so well is each of the factions plays so differently. So it's always interesting to try and figure out the different factions. And I think we've got all of them. We went all in on Root. And then in particular, once we got the Marauders expansion, that allows it to work really well at 2 players because it has these NPC characters that you get to control every now and then. And so it fills out the map space and gives you these temporary allies that you have to use strategically. And so because of that, now it's actually made a solid top 100 game for me, way up in this position.
And I love that it has fooled you into playing coin games with me because that's basically what it is.
Yeah. So each of the factions are real fighting factions, and I don't know if I have a favorite yet. I do like the Vagabond because that's the least fighty one. But it is fun to try them all, and Root is my number 69.
My number 69 is Camel Up, and Camel Up is the second racing betting game that we have on this list, and Camel Up is just a really goofy racing betting game. So you're not really racing because no one owns any of the camels, but you are deciding on your turn whether you want to bet on a camel either to do well or to do poorly, or to take one of the dice and move one of the camels. But the thing about taking dice is you are then giving other people information. So you don't really want to take them. Oh, you can also move this little thing that you've got. It's like, I don't even know what it's meant to be, like the crowd or something.
Oh, yeah.
And you want the camels to go onto it.
Yeah.
So there's another thing you can do, but that's not important. The important thing is about this tension of when do I take a dice to actually move a camel, thus giving other people information for their bets, and when do I place bets, but without enough information to really know those bets because I haven't seen the dice yet. So every decision's interesting, and you don't need to know anything really about this game. You just need to know, I'm gonna move a camel, or I'm gonna place a bet. So you can teach this to people in seconds, and they're gonna basically learn as they play. And it's fun, even in that first game when you don't know what you're doing, it's just fun. It's fun to watch the camels race. It's fun to watch them climb on top of each other.
It's so fun to stack them.
It is just naturally fun to stack camels. And when they get caught up in the reverse camels and taken backwards, just great. And it is my 69.
My number 68 is A Feast for Odin, which is a Uwe Rosenberg Viking game. And this game is another one of my games that took me a while to warm up to. And I think that's because the first time you play it, you see your board and it's filled with like this empty space. And you're like, okay, I've got to try and figure out how to fill all of this space. And you're doing this by, like, it's a worker placement game. So you put your workers on and they're just like a whole ton of different spots that you can go on. And you're getting these goods that are represented by polyomino tiles and then using those goods to fill your boards. But what you come to realize is as you're filling your boards and surrounding things, you're getting bonuses. And it's actually a lot easier to get those bonuses by getting like island boards and other housing boards. And so you kind of have to like do a little bit of those, which at first seems like something you're supposed to do like after you fill your main board. And so I was like, how on earth can you get positive points? Because first I got to fill this, then I have to fill that. And then you come to realize, oh, I can like more easily like get these bonuses on these other boards, which will help me overall.
And it's just more fun too to make that engine that's going to help you to this goal instead of like, I just got to work at this goal. Making that engine is so much more fun.
And it's made more fun by the Norwegians expansion because that has just like tweaked a few of the spots and let you play more of the cards that I think let you lean into some of the different strategies a bit more. And so A Feast for Odin is my number 68.
My 68 is Septima. And Septima is a pretty new one to us, and I can see this moving way up the list, but Septima has got such a clever theme. So in Septima, you are a coven of witches, and you're trying to help out this town, and you're trying to heal up these people, but these people are jerks. So if they find out that you are a witch, then they're gonna throw you into trial, and there's gonna be a whole witch hunt. So you have to help them, but like quietly, so that you don't get found out. And how you actually play Septima is this really solid card system. So you're just picking cards and you're getting to do a power. But if you pick the same card as someone else, then you get a benefit, which is great. But also you raise a whole bunch of suspicion and you're gonna get chased by witch hunters and it's gonna cause you trouble. So there's this really interesting push-pull where you want that benefit, you want that extra stuff, but you also don't want the extra stuff. You only want it sometimes. You gotta be kind of clever with it. And this has got kind of a full game and a half game. I strongly suggest just play with the full game because the half game I was like, it's okay. When we played with the full game and the cards that you pick move you up this board, so much more interesting. It's just a really, really cool full game. And that is my 68.
My number 67 is Far Away, and Far Away is a small box card game. And I think it's probably the game that we've been playing the most of in the last few months because we love small box card games. So like there are times when we discover one and it's like all we play for a while. And what's really interesting about Far Away is you have to play your cards in an order on your board, but then at the very end of the game, you flip all of your cards over and then you score them backwards. So you flip your last one and you have to score based on the resources that are currently seen in your tableau. So it's just really tricky to try and set yourself up for probably ones that need a lot of resources to play early on and hope that you can get those resources by the time it gets flipped. But the reverse scoring thing takes a couple of games to wrap your head around, but makes it just really interesting. And it is my number 67.
My number 67 is Spirit Island. And Spirit Island is one of the heavier co-op games that is out there. And in Spirit Island, you are different asymmetric spirits. You're trying to chase out these invaders. And all these spirits play super different. And we've got, we've got a couple of the expansions. So we've got more spirits than we're going to play with probably at this point. And there's so many different things you can add to this game. So this is already quite a heavy game where you're trying to protect villages and villagers, and you're also trying to get rid of these invaders before they build up their cities and their houses and everything else that they're trying to do. And it is hard. It feels,
and that's like base game that's hard.
That's just that, yeah, and there's all these different levels that you can add in that are going to make it harder that we've barely even touched because it's so hard right away. And you build up and it just feels impossible. And every time we talk about this game, we say this, but it's important to say because it's got such a weird game curve where it's like, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this. Oh my God, we're doing it, we did it. And every game feels like that. And so it's like, it's overwhelmingly difficult. And then it feels, you just get this huge sense of like elation of we've done it, I can't believe it, we faced impossible odds. And you feel like that every game. And I don't know another game that does that. So it is my 67.
My number 66 is Tang Garden, and I love tile placement games and I love beautiful games, and this is exactly that. I love that it starts off with like a white canvas, and then as you're adding the tiles, you're adding the colors to this shared like tranquil garden that you're building, and all of the pieces look really great. Like it has these great pagodas and bridges, but it's actually like pretty mean because you're always trying to make sure like you're restricting your opponent with what they can do, because you never want to take like the second to last tile because then all of the tiles options get revealed and that gives your opponent the most available options to choose from. So you are like just adding to this tranquil garden and you're putting out your gardeners and you're adding these landscapes. But the whole time you're doing that, you are making sure that like you're not giving your opponent points for the tiles. You're making sure you're putting things that the other person's gardeners don't want to look at in front of them. And like it's a little bit sneaky, but it's still really lovely despite that.
It's such a mean, nice game.
Yeah, I would describe it as that, and it's my number 66.
My number 66 is Obsession, and in Obsession you are super fancy people in like 1800s England, and you've got a mansion, a like small mansion, but definitely a mansion, and you've got a staff of people, and you are trying to invite other fancy people into your fancy home and impress them with the different rooms you have and throwing different parties and having the right wait staff to wait on them. It's a game that I should hate. It's like all of the things about the theme of this game are so completely opposite of what I'm usually into.
It was definitely a game for Jess.
Yes, it was a purchase for Jess, and I ended up really liking it because mechanically it's just a super sound game, and how it works, how getting the tiles work and getting your staff and everything is really smart. But what I really like is thematically, it's just not even very secretly, it's so tongue-in-cheek, so it's so poking fun at at this whole world, and I love poking fun at this world, and all of the people have these hilarious little write-ups, and so it's great because I think it will win over the people who really like that stuff, are really interested in that stuff, or are big Bridgerton fans, but it's also going to win over people like me who really find that stuff ridiculous and want to make fun of that stuff, and I think it just rides that line perfectly. So it is my 66.
My number 65 is Euphoria, which is a worker placement game that takes place in a dystopian world. And so you have these different dice that are your workers, and the value of the dice determines what actions you can do. But what's interesting is as you collect more dice, the odds of like one of them being too smart increases, and if they're too smart, they realize like the dystopian world that they live in, and you lose that worker dice. So I love the thematic elements that have been like embedded in the game, like the names of the markets as well. And I do like for the worker placement aspect, you're racing to like achieve these goals with these stars that you're putting out. But when you build a market, it always takes at least one other person. So there's like slightly cooperative, but definitely not like building of markets that are happening as well. But I will say it does need the expansion Ignorance is Bliss, because that fixes some of the markets and makes it a game that's playable for 2 players. So with that, it's my number 65.
My number 65 is Beyond the Sun. And Beyond the Sun is really, it's a giant tech tree. You've got all these cards laid out in a tech tree, and you're gaining these abilities. And then from that, you're going to be able to gain other stuff as you move along this tech tree to try and get to the end of the tech tree to get the really cool stuff. And I know that sounds boring. And also, if you look at it, it also looks boring. It honestly, it does. It just looks very plain, but it is not boring. It is terrific. It is such a cool, interesting space game. It's this interesting race around this tech tree. It also has this really neat kind of area control, but like not mean area control bit where you're going on these different planets. It's got this really cool engine where you're taking off bits and you're getting stronger as you go. So you really feel a sense of progression both through your board and through the tech tree. So it's so much better than it looks like it is or sounds like it is on paper. It's so worth playing.
And the dice are so cool.
And the dice are, and how they use the dice are really cool too, because your people move from like a suitcase to a person to a jet, you know, as we do. And that is my 65.
My number 64 is Rolling Realms, and Rolling Realms is another Stonemaier game because Euphoria was a Stonemaier game. And Rolling Realms is a roll and write. Throughout a game, you always use 9 different cards, and each card represents a different board game. It started off originally with just Stonemaier games, but now it's expanded to include like a whole ton.
So many games.
Yeah, tons of other games. And the way you mark the cards off and how they combo is all different and all tries to tie into like the thematic or mechanical elements of the game it's trying to represent. So I love the asymmetry and how different every game feels because of the different mix of realms you get. So that's my number 64.
My number 64 is Trails of Tucana. So 64 is our roll and write number. And Trails of Tucana is just a terrific, super light, super simple roll and write where you are drawing on a map. People love drawing. I love drawing on a map. And so you got this map in front of you, and each time you're gonna have, it's not actually a roll and write, it's a flip and write. So you're gonna flip 2 cards. Well, Jess specifically always is our card flipper. She's gonna flip 2 cards, and it's gonna tell you 2 different landscapes. You gotta connect those anywhere at all on your map. They don't have to connect to anything you've already done. It doesn't matter. You can just put them anywhere. And it feels like map bingo. Yeah. And you're putting these things, you're putting out these lines, and sometimes you're also getting the different special things on the map connected to one of the exits. You're also trying to connect those exits together. When you do that, you get little combos. Sometimes you combo those combos, and then you put more lines on your map. And that's really all there is to it, but it's really satisfying in that like awesome flip and write and bingo-y way. And the cool thing is, this game's got different maps on the front and the back. So the front side, or what I've decided is the front side, has like kind of a short game. The back has a longer game. We always play both games. We always play frontsy backsy, and we always enjoy both games, and it is my 64.
My number 63 is Race for the Galaxy, and this is the second Tom Lemming game we've had on the list because you had Res Arcana. And in Race for the Galaxy, you are getting different cards and you're trying to build out your tableau of cards. But anytime you want to play a card, you have to pay for it with cards. So it's always difficult decisions of which ones to keep and which ones to use as like the currency to pay for it. But all your different cards have like different colors for the planets they represent, and you're trying to find these synergies and build different engines on what cards might work together. And I think it works just so well with the action selection system, because it means you're always involved, because you always select what action you want to do, and 2 players you select 2 actions you want to do, and then everybody gets to do all of those actions. So it can be like, I really like it when I choose not to do an action knowing that you're gonna do that, because I'm like, oh, I won't waste one of my actions for that. I know Shawn's gonna play that. And so Race for the Galaxy is my number 64.
My number 63 is Fields of Arle, and Fields of Arle is a 2-player specific game, and it is by far the largest specifically for 2 players game that we own. I don't know if it's the biggest one that's out there, but this is a big old table hog of a game, and it's an Uwe Rosenberg farming game. It's a full farming game. So you've got your farm board, you're doing all sorts of Uwe Rosenberg things. You're collecting up peat and clearing it off fields. You're doing animal husbandry, of course. You got a bunch of buildings you're putting out. But how you're doing it is this cool action selection system that goes over the course of a bunch of years, and it's through seasons. In each season there's a ton of different possible actions that you can do. But you kind of have to like prioritize and race for those, because only one person can do almost all of those actions. And if someone else takes it, they're all very, very specific. So you really have to change what you're doing. So you really have to be adaptable. You got to have a few different things going on. You got a lot that you got to get done. But it's just really, like, it's really fun. The feeding system isn't as punishing as some Uwe Rosenberg games. And it's really rewarding, even though I almost never win at this game because I love animal husbandry.
You do, and it does not get you a lot of points.
It does not seem to pay off, but I still love it, and it is my 63.
My number 62 is Cartographers, which is a flip and write game. And in Cartographers, you are adding different terrains to your map. And so we love using pencil crayons, because then we can really spend a lot of time to add our proper villages, our rivers, our fields.
It takes so much longer than it needs to, but it's more fun.
But that's part of the fun, is I just really like drawing out the shapes. And it also is just really interesting in how it scores, because there are 4 like scoring conditions, but each season only 2 of those will score. So you always have to decide, like, usually when a card flips, there's usually a couple different terrains you can choose from. So you might be like wanting to make sure you're adding to ones that scoring now, or investing in ones in later seasons. But I think really it's just like the drawing out with the pencil crayons that makes this so good. And it's my number 62.
My number 62 is Distilled, and in Distilled you have inherited a distillery and you are trying to bring it back to its past glory. And how you're doing that is through card management, as it happens in the real world. And so you're getting a bunch of cards, you're buying cards each round, and you've got this market of cards. You've also got like basic cards that you get. And those cards are going to be the stuff that goes into whiskey, which is the sugars and the water and the grain.
And the alcohol.
We legitimately just did an actual distillery tour yesterday, so I should know this. But you've got 3 different things you're putting in there. Those things are mixing together. They're making alcohol. And then you're taking off the top card and the bottom card. You're putting those back. And then you're recycling them, which, as we learned yesterday, is exactly what they do. And then you're seeing which of the spirits you have managed to make. So in this, you are targeting a certain kind of spirit, but sometimes you make something that you don't mean to make. Often that's going to be vodka or moonshine. But you've got all these different spirits, and you can switch those up each game as well. And the cool thing about this is, even though that core is so simple, there are a lot of different paths and a lot of different bits to this game, because you can do aged or not aged. You can have all these different kind of helpers and upgrades. You've got all different kinds of ingredients that you're mixing in together, those different flights, all those things make bottle collecting make a surprising amount of difference. And this game was just a lot deeper than I expected it to be, but still with simple rules. And it is my 62.
My number 61 is Scythe, and Scythe it takes place in this beautiful world. I love the art, and in Scythe, you are these very different asymmetric factions, and you are doing resource management, you're doing a little bit of combat, but at the heart, you're also doing like action selection. And I find that really interesting because you have 4 different possible actions, and then the way your boards are set up are different for each one. So you can always do the top action, and then if you have the resources, you can do the bottom action. So where possible, you're trying to do that as efficiently as possible to set yourself out to do both. And it's also a race because you're trying to be able to achieve, like, you're getting your 6 stars out for your 6 achievements first, because that's who wins the game. But I love the combination of figuring out your asymmetric faction with your board, with what's happening on the shared board to like take advantage of the opportunities as everybody's moving about. And I really like the expansion Rise of Fenris because it gives this whole like backstory and a really interesting campaign. So Scythe is my number 61.
My number 61 is Teotihuacan, and I am not sure that I'm saying that right. And I watched like 5 videos of how to pronounce this before we started. None of them agreed with each other. So I'm gonna say it Teotihuacan. Apologies if that's not correct. But Teotihuacan is this really cool, it uses dice in this really interesting way, where they're your workers. They're going to be on the board in this kind of temple, and they're going to move around that temple to different chunks of it. And as they move, they're going to get you a bunch of stuff or exchange stuff or everything you kind of expect them to do. But they're also going to move up in value each time they move. And when they get all the way to their top value, they die and they ascend and they move up this like temple track. And it's this really cool balance of wanting to have a bunch of workers because you can combo them and they can do stuff, but also not because you got to feed them, although they only eat cocoa beans. This is like everyone's so hopped up on coffee in this world. And so you're moving them around, you're feeding them these cocoa beans, you're also getting cocoa beans by going to different spots, and you're killing them off and watching this ascendancy track kind of move up, and all of it is just, it's so clever. And with the expansion as well, it makes all of those different sections of the temple like movable. It adds different chunks to it. There's other expansions we haven't even played with yet because there's so much in this game. One of the smartest ways I've seen dice used in any game at all, and it is my 61. And that is it. That brings us down to 61. So next time we're counting down the 50s. I just love saying it like a radio show host. Counting down the 50s.
Thank you so much for watching. Please let us know in the comments if you played any of the games we talked about. And as usual, please like, subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you next time for another game.